I was working at Sandy Springs, and a lady called me up and said her husband had died and she found a gun in his sock drawer. She was kind of flipping out about it. I said, all right, ma'am. I said, calm down. Was the gun clear? And she said, no, it's black. And actually, there is a joke I'll tell you. It's a gunsmith joke. This guy drops his rifle off at the gunsmith. It's an old Winchester 94, and he forgets about it. 5 years later, he's emptying out his wallet, and he finds the stub, and he looks at it, and he goes, oh, man. So he figures that they've probably sold it by now, so he calls the shop, and this old fella answers. He says, yeah, I left a rifle there 5 years ago. It's an old Winchester 94, and if you guys sold it, I understand everything, but I was just going to see if it was still there. And the old guy says, well, let me go talk to the gunsmith. I'll go see if it's still here. And he goes off. A minute later, he comes back. He said, yeah, it's here. He said it'd be ready on Friday. What else? I had a guy bring me a revolver wrapped in a pair of size 62 Hanes Tighty Whities once. They were yellow. Red Bull. This is not a drink. This is food. This is sustenance.
Is there protein in that?
I like to think so. That's what I tell myself. Yes, I like. I used to drink a lot of coffee, and it was exacerbating my reflux. So I just decided one a day, and because when I was drinking coffee, I was going 3 pots a day. And I was like a little hummingbird. And how do you think I stay so svelte at 55 years old? But, so yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Do you have a tradition that you do anything specific on your birthday?
Take the day off. I'm Josh the Gunsmith at SharpShooters.
How long have you been a gunsmith?
20 years.
Why did you become a gunsmith?
Out of spite.
Spite for who?
Well, I was a jeweler for 10 years and I burned out and I decided to find another job, and what did it for me was I had an old demilled M14 that I wanted scoped. And I figured that was a little beyond my ability, and I took it to a fellow up in Gwinnett County who charged me $175 to screw up my rifle. And I thought, how hard can it be? So I went to a bunch of shops and asked these guys, how do you learn about this stuff? And most of them were, well, I just picked it up over the years or whatever. And I went to a shop down in Buckhead, and this old guy there told me about the Colorado School of Trades.
Is that Chuck's?
Chuck's
Firearms.
Yep. And I went home and looked it up, and I thought, this would be great. You know, I'm 34, young enough for a career change. It's pretty much in line with what I did as a jeweler, as far as, you know, fitting small parts and detail work and metal finishing and all that. And when I looked up the school online, I thought, man, this looks perfect. And you know, change of scenery, because, you know, I'd been in Atlanta for all my life pretty much. And so I called them up, signed up. They asked me if I wanted to come and take a tour. I was like, no, just sign me up. And took about 6 months to get everything wrapped up here. And I went out there, and strangely, my granddad was a machinist. And when he retired, he built a shop behind his house. And he painted it, it was built of cinder blocks, and he painted it this hideous green color. And the day before I went to school, I decided to do a drive-by just to make sure I knew how to get there and not get lost on the way or whatever. And I got there, and that building was made of the same green cinder blocks and smelled the same machine oil, metals. I was just like, I knew I was home, man. 20 years later, here I am.
Nice.
Every day is, you learn something new, that's for sure. And I mean, right now with the way the industry is, you know, I'll get home and I'm on my phone or my computer for a couple hours just trying to look up new products just to be able to, you know, when somebody brings one in, can you put this in? I don't want to be sitting there going,
That's great. right now?
The jar of shame. The jar of shame is a big mason jar full of live ammunition that has all been pointed right here. And usually it's people coming in off the street to bring their guns in to have me look at them, and they don't know they're loaded. And of course, they don't see the 5 signs outside that say all guns must be in a case and unloaded.
6. Sorry.
Six, sorry. And so you point it at me, it goes in the jar. And you get reprimanded.
Where did the jar come from? Where did the ID come from?
You know, that's a good question. I just kind of did it one day, just because so many were coming in, and I was like, you know, I need to make an example. And right now, I don't even know how many rounds are in that thing, but
it's about 2/3 full.
Yeah, it's got a lot in it. And the thing is I never hear, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." How, you know, oh my God. It's always, "How did that happen?" You know, "How'd that get in there?" I don't know. You put it there, you know. So yeah, there's the jar. I had one guy come in one time. This was 2013. Asked to see me, and he'd been in here before, and he had this AK he was always tweaking on. He'd always come, "Well, I just want to see what you think," which means I screwed it up. Can you fix it? And he said his hammer pin was walking out, and I thought, oh God. He was monkeying around with his trigger group and didn't put his shepherd's crook back in correctly, and opened it up. My hammer pin was about halfway out, and as he hands it to me, he says it's got a live round in it, and I go, "Ugh!" And I take it back to my bench, open up the dust cover, and the hammer had fallen forward at an angle and was resting against the side of the receiver, and the only thing keeping it from going forward and hitting that firing pin was friction. And I started yelling loud enough to where they heard me out in the showroom, and our GM, a fellow named Matt, came back and said, "What's going on?" And I showed him, and so I had to extract that round without rearranging my face. That was a fun one.
That was an AK?
Yeah. And we actually later watched the surveillance video, and he came into the store with it in a soft case over his shoulder, walks around the store for about 5 minutes looking at everything, walks over to my bench and goes, "Woomph," and throws it down on my bench, pointed at a group of women that were about to come in the door. So yeah, I told him he needed to find a new range to terrorize after that. So yeah, there's some real rockets out there. Owning an AR-15 and being proficient with it, you know, is, you know, not only commendable, it's almost your patriotic duty, but at the same time, being proficient doesn't mean just hitting what you shoot at. It's, you know, knowing how it works, how to maintain it, how to take care of it, how to keep it in good running condition, how to diagnose it. You know, if you're having a cycling problem, learn the cycle of operation of the rifle. You know, there's 8 parts to it: feeding, chambering, locking, firing, unlocking, extraction, ejection, and recocking. All 8 of those things happen every time you pull that trigger. And if you have a malfunction, you'll have a better idea of where's it going wrong in that cycle, and possibly correct it yourself. You know, if it's a feeding issue, well, you probably got a bum mag. If it's not chambering, you could have an obstruction, or it could be bad ammo. I mean, there's, you know, a lot of factors, but you know how your gas system works. You know, it could be something with your gas system. And it's really not that complicated. Well, you can make it as complicated as you want, you know. It was bad, but like I said, most of them are pretty similar. So, you know, as long as you know the basics on them, you can kind of figure out what's going on with them, and you know, if there's an issue, you can usually diagnose it relatively quickly. Sometimes you get that one though that just needs Jesus, and you just you don't. You know, I had an AR one time, and I could not get that thing to run to save my life. And I mean, I tried everything. I went through everything, and I just couldn't figure it out. And this was, you know, God, how many years ago? Like 13 years ago, maybe. And I had the thing for about a week, and I had the bolt carrier in my hand, and the phone rang, and I looked, and it was the guy that the rifle belonged to. And I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna have to tell him I haven't figured it out yet. And I picked up the phone with the same hand I had the bolt carrier in, and when I held it up to my ear, I heard that gas key go tick 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 tick. And I went, "Hey man, I just figured out what's wrong with your rifle." When I was in cyclo ops in school, we had to write single page, single line spaced, start apart, stop apart, moving for all 8 basic types of firearms. And like with the revolver, it was 26 pages, single spaced. Shooter pulls trigger to the rear, trigger rotates counterclockwise on trigger pin. Rebound moves back, stops against frame or rebound pin, rebound spring compresses, just on and on and on and on. We called it psycho ops because by the time you were done, you were just, and it was in the middle of summer too, and there was no air conditioning, and you had to do it in pencil because you had to keep erasing, and it was all smudged from sweat and everything. I remember at school we had a kind of a dress code. You had to wear long pants and boots, because we worked in a machine shop. But in Cyclops, we spent 2 weeks just writing. We went to the owner of the school. We're like, Robert, can we please wear shorts and at least running shoes? And he had come out of his air-conditioned office in shorts and flip-flops telling us why we couldn't. And so we just had to sweat it out.
So for the eight basic different types of firearms, you had to write every movement of the cycle.
Yep.
And that was for your, why did he make you do that?
So how God, my Red Bull hasn't kicked in yet. Well, like I said, there's 8 basic firearms. You've got pump action, lever action, bolt action, break open, semi-auto, blowback, what am I forgetting? Short recoil operated, and I'm forgetting one. Revolver. The same principle. Now there's 30 million types of short recoil operated pistols, but most of them work on the same principle. And same thing with revolvers. I could look into a pistol and go, okay, that's your sear, that's your trigger bar, that's your this or that or this or that. Now there's some where you're just like like an HKP7. That thing's like a Swiss watch, and I took one of those apart one time, and don't do it. It's bad. Don't do it.
Well, that's why you were a jeweler beforehand, right?
Right. And I thought I could get a transfer bar into it by moving apart about 20 thousandths of an inch. Well, I moved it about 21 thousandths of an inch, and that gun literally flew apart for about 4 seconds. It just went, and it took about 8 days of trial and error to put that thing together. This guy right here, this is a build that I did. It started out as the handguard. We had a officer that used to train here who was captain of Cherokee SWAT, and they issued him a Daniel Defense Mark 18. And he didn't like the quad rail, he wanted an M-lock put on it. So I did the job for him, and he said, what do I owe you? And I said, nothing, I'm doing my civic duty, because it was his duty rifle. And he said, well, you want to keep that handguard? And I said, that $550 Daniel Defense for his 2 handguard? Yes, sir, I'd be happy to hang on to that. And then over time, I just started piecing it together. I'd inherit parts, or actually the only things I paid for on this rifle were the lower receiver, the optic, the bolt carrier, the light, and that's it. Everything else was inherited. I even got the can for free. I had a customer come in, and he said, I'm going into an assisted living and they won't let me have a firearm. And he said, I've got this old gun I bought in 1980, never fired it, it's been in my closet ever since, and I thought you might appreciate it. And he opens it up, and it's a Beretta 81 Cheetah. It's a $900 pistol. And I said, how much do you want for it? And he goes, nothing. And he gave it to me. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. Okay. But then I thought, well, what the hell am I going to do with a 380? I don't want another caliber. So I traded it to AG for this can, because he was looking to sell this to get money for a class. So traded even, and all I had to do was give Uncle Sam his share of the action. And I'm still waiting for that to clear after 9 months. But yeah, and I've got this right where I want it. I'm real happy with it. It's got the Faxon barrel, the KGM can, the Surefire lights, Daniel Defense handguard, Young Manufacturing bolt carrier group. It's a Spikes tactical lower, an Arrow upper, Wilson combat trigger, an Aimpoint Pro optic, and well, we won't talk about what's on the end of it.
And what's that on your grip?
Oh, everybody gives me crap about that. I put tennis racket tape on my grips because it works. And I've been doing that since I was in the Army. And it just works for me. So.
Is there anything special to the sling? You didn't mention that.
It's just a plain old Magpul 2-point sling. I got that for free as well. Usually I run the Vickers. I like those a lot. The Magpuls are a little bit slick, but free 99. So